Hello, everyone, and welcome to the IO Edge, where industrial organizational psychology meets the fast-paced world of modern HR. I'm your host, Dr. Jacqueline Minor. This podcast is dedicated to HR professionals, managers, and IO psychologists looking to lead with insight, strategy, and confidence. Whether you're an HR professional looking to level up or an IO psych grad wondering where you fit in the business world, this podcast gives you the tools and insight to lead with purpose. On today's podcast, we will discuss workplace investigations, psychological safety meets HR compliance. In this episode, we'll explore how to balance the need for psychological safety with the requirements of HR compliance during workplace investigations. We'll reference insights from experts like Amy C. Edmondson, Lisa Guerin, Amy Oppenheimer, and Timothy R. Clark. So let's get started. So psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. It's critical in the workplace because it fosters open communication, innovation, and collaboration. According to Timothy R. Clark, there are 4 stages of psychological safety. 1, inclusion safety. 2, learner safety. 3, contributor safety. And 4, challenger safety. Each stage builds on the previous one, creating an environment where employees feel safe to express themselves and take risks without fear of negative consequences. A practical example. At a tech company, the implementation of regular safe space meetings allowed employees to share concerns and ideas without fear of retribution. We would normally call this retaliation. This practice led to increased innovation and a more cohesive team dynamic. HR compliance in workplace investigations involves adhering to legal and ethical standards to ensure fairness and transparency. A recent ruling in the High Court of Australia, Alicia versus Vision Australia Limited, highlighted the importance of providing a safe system of work that extends to investigation and decision-making. Employers have a duty of care to consider the potential psychological impact of their actions on employees. This ruling emphasizes the need for strict adherence to disciplinary procedures to avoid causing psychological harm and legal repercussions. Another practical example, an organization faced a complaint of harassment and followed a strict HR compliance protocol, ensuring procedural fairness and transparency. This approach not only resolved the issue, but also maintained trust among employees. Balancing psychological safety and HR compliance requires clear communication, transparency, and fairness throughout the investigation process. It's essential to create an environment where employees feel safe to report concerns without fear of retaliation. Best practices include providing regular updates to all parties involved, ensuring confidentiality, and offering support resources such as counseling services. By integrating these practices, organizations can maintain compliance while fostering a culture of psychological safety. Here's another practical example. A company conducted an investigation into a discrimination complaint by using a trauma-informed approach. They ensured that all parties were supported with counseling services and kept informed throughout the process, which helped maintain psychological safety. So as we look at case studies and real-world examples, these have been successfully integrating psychological safety and HR compliance in their workplace investigations. So one case study involves a company that implemented a transparent investigation process with regular communication and support resources for employees. This approach not only ensured compliance, but also maintained a high level of trust and psychological safety among employees. Another example is an organization that provided training for HR professionals and leaders on how to conduct investigations while prioritizing psychological safety. These examples highlight the importance of a balanced approach and the positive outcomes it can achieve. As we look at another practical example, a retail company faced multiple complaints of workplace bullying. By implementing a comprehensive investigation process that included regular check-ins, with affected employees and clear communication of outcomes, they were able to restore a positive work environment. As an employee relation consultant, I believe that a structured investigation process doesn't just protect your organization legally, it actually creates psychological safety for everyone involved. The information I'm about to share is regarding an investigation template I use when conducting workplace investigations, and will break down why every single question and step matters. When an employee comes forward with a concern, whether it's harassment, discrimination, safety issues, or misconduct, they're often in a vulnerable state. They may be scared, angry, or uncertain about what happens next. This is where the intersection of psychological safety and HR compliance becomes crucial. A standardized investigation template serves three critical functions. First, it ensures consistency. Every employee gets the same thorough treatment, regardless of who's involved or what the allegation is. This consistency builds trust in the process. Second, it manages organizational risk. By following the same systematic approach, you reduce the chances of missing critical information or making procedural errors that could expose your organization to liability. Third, and perhaps most importantly, it creates psychological safety. When employees see that there's a clear professional process in place, they're more likely to come forward with concerns and more likely to participate honestly in investigations. Let's break down the key components that make this work. The investigation begins before you even start asking questions. A template captures comprehensive employee information up front, not just basic demographics, but performance ratings, disciplinary history, and even accommodation needs. This isn't bureaucracy or for bureaucracy's sake. When you have this information at your fingertips, you can approach each case with appropriate context while avoiding unconscious bias. You're less likely to make assumptions about credibility based on limited information. The real psychological safety magic happens in the 10 standard intake questions. Let's examine why each one matters. Exactly what occurred. This open-ended question lets the complainant tell their story in their own words first. It signals that you're there to listen, not interrogate. When and where did it occur? Vague allegations are harder to investigate and can leave everyone feeling uncertain about the process. Are there any immediate threats to safety? This question does double duty. It identifies urgent risks while also demonstrating that employee safety is the top priority. The sequence of these questions is intentional. You start with the big picture, then narrow down to specifics, witnesses, and documentation. This mirrors how people naturally process traumatic or stressful events, from general impressions to specific details. What is your desired outcome? This final question is psychologically powerful. It helps investigators understand expectations and manage them appropriately. The templates, witness section, and documentation requirements aren't just about building a case. They're about creating a fair process that everyone can trust. When you systematically identify and interview witnesses, you're demonstrating that you're seeking the truth, not just accepting the first story you hear. This protects both complainants and accused parties. It also models the kind of thorough, fair-minded approach you want to see throughout your organization. The documentation section is particularly smart. By specifically calling out emails, videos, text messages, and audio, you're normalizing the fact that modern workplace issues often have digital footprints. This removes the guesswork for both investigators and participants. The recommendation framework, ranging from informal consultation to termination, serves as both a compliance tool and a psychological anchor. It ensures that consequences are proportionate and consistent, which is essential for maintaining trust in the process. The template requires approval from HR business partners and senior leadership for termination. This isn't just about authorization, it's about ensuring that the most serious consequences are carefully considered and defensible. Here's where psychological safety and compliance truly intersect. When employees trust your investigation process, they're more likely to report issues early when they're easier to address. This creates a positive feedback loop. The occurrence tracking system at the bottom of the template illustrates this perfectly by clearly defining what constitutes various infractions. 4 minutes late equals 0.5 occurrences, unexcused absences equals 1 occurrence. You remove ambiguity and create fairness. Employees now know what to expect. This transparency reduces the psychological burden on both managers and employees. Managers don't have to worry about making inconsistent decisions, and employees don't have to wonder if they're being treated fairly compared to their colleagues. The standardization also protects against unconscious bias. When you have clear criteria and consistent processes, personal relationships and implicit biases have less room for influence outcomes. If you're implementing or refining your investigation process, remember that the template is just the beginning. The psychological safety benefits only emerge when your team is properly trained to use those tools with empathy and professionalism. Consider these key practices. Train your investigators not just on the questions to ask, but on how to ask them. Active listening and trauma-informed interviewing techniques can make the difference between a complaint and one who feels interrogated. Communicate the process clearly to all participants. When people understand what's happening and why, their anxiety decreases and their cooperation increases. Follow up appropriately. The investigation doesn't end when you make your recommendation. Check in with all parties to ensure that any agreed upon actions are working and that there's no retaliation. The most effective workplace investigations aren't just about finding facts and assigning consequences. They're about reinforcing the kind of culture you want to build. When done right, they demonstrate that your organization takes concerns seriously, treats people fairly, and has systems in place to address problems constructively. That's psychological safety and compliance working hand in hand. If your organization needs help creating an HR compliant workplace investigation process, feel free to contact me at letsconnect@minorconsultinggroup.com. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. On our next episode, we will explore stability disrupted, finding purpose after the layoff. We will be joined by our special guest, Dr. Rajanique Modesti, who will share insights from her new workbook, After the Layoff, Reclaiming Power When Stability Disappears, available now on Amazon. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Spotify to stay connected to the conversation at the intersection of psychology, business, and human resources. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Minor. I'll see you soon.